Greetings all and welcome to another episode of the GCSAA Podcast presented in partnership with Envu. I'm your host, Scott Hollister, and I'm happy to have you with us for episode 66 of the podcast. Our guest today is a superintendent who is as well known and respected here in the States as he is on the other side of the pond, and that is Rick Tegtmeier. Rick is the Director of Grounds at Des Moines Golf and Country Club in the capital city of Iowa. He is a longtime certified golf course superintendent through GCSAA, and he is also one of just a handful to also earn the Master Greenkeeper designation from our friends at the British and International Golf Greenkeepers Association. Earlier this year, Rick announced that he would be retiring from his role in Des Moines at the end of October, so we thought it was a perfect time to have Rick on the podcast to talk about his career and some of his favorite memories from his 40-plus years in golf course management. GCM's Howard Richmond handles the interviewing on this one, and I think you're going to enjoy his conversation with the one and only Rick Tegtmeier on this episode of the GCSAA Podcast. I want to remind you quickly that there are options when it comes to the podcast. There is, of course, the traditional audio versions available wherever you get your podcast, but we also have video versions available on GCSAA's YouTube channel as well as on GCSA TV. So whatever your preference, we have you covered. And with that out of the way, let's go. This is episode 66 of the GCSAA Podcast featuring Rick Tegtmeier, CGCS MG from Des Moines Golf and Country Club.
Hello, everybody. This is Howard Richmond, Associate Editor at GCM Magazine, the GCSAA, and welcome to our GCSAA Podcast today. And we want to welcome our guest who has been around, and a lot of you probably know him around the country, not just where he's from in the heartland of it. It's Rick Tegtmeier, CGCS, Rick, and Master Greenkeeper, Director of Grounds at Des Moines Golf and Country Club. And great to have you, Rick. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Howard. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Well, we appreciate you doing this and taking your time for us. Yeah, I don't know where to start with you, Rick. There's so much, but I think I'm going to start at the latest, the breaking news kind of stuff that happened. Well, not real breaking, but it happened recently when you announced your retirement from the club, be effective in October. Tell us a little bit about that, what came in that decision, and why you decided this was the right time.
You know, for me, Howard, it'll be October 31 of this year that I'll be done. That's the end of our fiscal year. It's also the end for me is it'd be 25 years at the club. I've been here twice. So 7 years the first time, 18 the second. In September, I'll be 40 years CGCS, and then just over 50 years in the business. So it just seemed like a good time when I turned 65 to move on to something else.
Well, it's been quite a career. I like I said, I'm not sure where to start with all this. I'm gonna hit some of these highlights, and there's more. And if I miss some, I apologize for that. One of the things we just talked about, we hit on, was the Master Greenkeeper, where you're the number 67th one in the whole world to reach that status with the British and International Golf Greenkeepers Association. And only 89 have ever been, have received that honor. Talk a little bit about that, what that meant to you and what you put into that to make that happen.
Well, to start off, back in 2012, the club received word we were going to host the Solheim Cup. And Nate Tegtmeier, who is my son, is one of our superintendents here. He's been here 16 years. I was doing Nate's annual review, and he came to me, and we were talking about the fact that he was not CGCS yet and all that. And he said, well, what about you? And I said, well, I'm CGCS. And he's like, well, you're not a Master Greenkeeper. Guys that are doing the Solheim Cup, guys that are doing the Ryder Cup are Master Greenkeepers. Why don't you try to do that? And so that was the challenge I accepted. I looked into it, got started with the process. Lee Strutt was very instrumental in helping me be my mentor and get through this. It's a long, arduous process. I finally got to the stage where, after the course tours and got that approved, then I had to do the the test. It's a 2-part test. And first time I took the test, it's, it tells you specifically don't write your name. You have to sign it a certain way. And what do? I get done doing the test and I sign my name. So I flunked without even them looking at me, I think. Second time I took the test, I passed one part. And then the third time I was able to pass the other part and received it. And it's quite an honor for me. It was difficult for me to get the job done, but I was very proud that I did it.
And I'm pretty sure I'm right about this. Weren't you involved with something really big at the course about that time before something else really big was coming to the course?
Well, we were doing we were doing a 4-year renovation project. So all 36 holes, 9 holes a year, completely renovating the golf course, doing greens, tees, bunkers. Not all of them, but we did all the tees and bunkers, but not all the greens. And so it was quite a process going through both at the same time. So
Yeah, of course, that led into another huge moment for you was 2017 with the Solheim Cup. Talk a little bit about that and the importance of that for you and your team and what it meant to the club.
For the club, we're a mid-sized community, and to host a worldwide event is pretty special. And when you have a state like Iowa that has no professional athletes or athletics, no pro basketball, no pro football, no pro baseball, when you have a professional golf event like that, it is very well attended. And 1999, the club had the U.S. Senior Open. It was the largest grossing senior open. And then when we hosted the Solheim, that too was also the largest grossing Solheim Cup. But also when we did it, the Junior Solheim Cup was held simultaneously. In all previous venues, it had been held, they held the Junior Solheim at one course and the Solheim at the other. When we did it, we hosted both events here, all 36 holes. And we produced a pretty good event for those girls. It was really a lot of fun.
Annika Sorenstam was the captain for the opposing team, which lost.
Yeah.
So, to have people like that there at that facility, that's pretty cool, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah, it was very cool.
And what just kind of hit me the other day when I was thinking about it with the solar eclipse coming up, was that right around then, or am I missing by a year when that?
No, I think it was right around there, Howard. When it happened here, I remember it being very cloudy and it just got dark. So we completely missed it.
Did that anything affect you with the course that week, getting ready and things?
No, not at all. It just that whole time leading up to the Solheim, the week leading up to it, and the week of the Solheim was really just a blur. You're so busy, so focused. By that time, if you're not ready for it all, you're in trouble. So our staff was very much well prepared. Both our superintendents at that time were very well prepared, and they did an excellent job in pulling it off. And also having all the superintendents from Iowa as our volunteers was a special thing for us and for me. And it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm going to go forward a couple more years after that. In 2019, you were elected for the Iowa Golf Association Hall of Fame. What an honor that was. Did you see that coming when it happened? And what were your thoughts? And what does that mean to you for what happened with your career?
I really did not see it coming. I was told that I had been nominated, and usually I know this now. Usually, when your name is brought forth, it can be on the nomination ballot for 5 years. I was very lucky to be a first-year recipient. First time my name was on the ballot. I'm the 7th superintendent in Iowa, the 2nd from Des Moines Golf and Country Club, and also the 2nd from Rockford, Iowa. John Austin, who I preceded in Rockford when I was a young man, is also on the Iowa Golf Hall of Fame. And it's quite an honor to go to those events and be recognized for what you've done and the contributions you made to the game. And it's really nice to be recognized.
kind of getting into a theme here, kind of a pattern, Rick. So we talked about 2015, 17, 19. Now we're going to go way back when all this started, when you were 13, when you really got involved with this. Now this, I think it kind of shows at that young age that you were going to do what you thought you needed to do or had to do or what you had to say when you walked into a bank and thought, you know what, I kind of would like to work at a golf course. Tell everybody about that doesn't know that story.
I have an older brother, and he and I did a lot of walking beans, baling hay, a lot of farm activities. When we were, 11, 12 years old, we actually even cleaned out some rail cars on the railroad when my dad worked on the railroad. Well, when I was 13, I walked in the bank with Dad one day, and a gentleman named Ed Batty was the president of the bank, and he was also the Greens chairman of the local 9-hole. And I just told him, I said, someday I'd like to work out there. And he had some sodding work that needed to be done later that fall. I went out and helped roll up sod and carry sod, load sod. They were putting in a car path. And then I think the following summer they had a little bit of push mowing and stuff that I did. And really, when I was 15, I got started going pretty much full time, where they, I was push mowing, weed eating. The weed eaters back then were brand new and very heavy and very loud and hard to run. And then by the time I was 16, I learned how to mow greens. I had a couple guys ahead of me, Larry Pump and Chuck Chapman. Chuck actually went in to turf school ahead of me. And when I was 17, Ed's like, what are you going to do for a living? And, you can do like Chuck did, and you can be a golf course superintendent. And that time, my whole goal was to work on a 9-hole golf course. I'd work 9 months out of the year, get paid for 12, and I'd be able to hunt and fish for 3 months. And I thought, man, that's a really good deal, but that didn't last very long. Reality set in. You got to make some money, and some other things happened. When I went to Urbandale Country Club right out of college. So,
and when you were 17, you were more or less a superintendent, right?
Yeah, I mean, my title wasn't superintendent, but I ran day-to-day operations, and Ed would give us guidance. He'd come out in the afternoons. He was, I think he had retired by then from the bank, and so he would come out and he would tell us what long-term goals were, or projects and things like that. But yeah, day-to-day things. I basically, myself and a couple other guys, worked on the golf course. It was a really fun time, and that we did not have automatic irrigation. We'd work every day, 8-9 hours, and then that night we'd go back and have to do hand watering with hoses and quick couplers, for greens and tees. So it was you had to be very committed, I think.
Talk about your college years. So it kind of was one of those situations where you eventually got to this ain't no stopping me now, after you had some situations where you thought, well, maybe school didn't work out that I wanted to, but it ended up working out and it led to something really good.
I was a decent student, but I really didn't apply myself in high school. I was very involved in Boy Scouts, and I was very involved working on the golf course. And so I really didn't, during the school year, didn't apply myself. I didn't really have a good SAT score, but I applied at Iowa State University, and I don't remember if it was a function of money or I think it was more my test scores really didn't match what their bottom standard was. And I didn't get accepted to Iowa State. And that really motivated me to, all right, so my second choice then was a 2-year program at Hawkeye Community College, which was a very good turf program at the time. My teacher was a guy named Peter Birch. He was a golf course superintendent out in New York who had moved to Iowa, and Pete was very good at what he did, and we had a good soils instructor, and I applied myself and went to my first turf conference when I thought I must have been 1979, the spring of 79. Went there, and I saw 3 or 4 kids from Iowa State getting scholarships from GCSAA. And I thought, if they can, why can't I? So I applied. I guess it must have been 78 because in 79 is when I got my scholarship. And even though it was only $250, it really opened up some doors for me. You know, I was probably one of the first in Iowa to get a scholarship. And I got some job interviews right out of college. I graduated in March of 80 and got a job right away. And I guess the rest is history.
What was it that kind of elevated you after you got out of college? Who were the people that really made a huge influence on you and kind of helped you take those next steps as you kept moving on?
Well, there was a turf salesman. His name was Steve Bird. Steve was from Houston, Illinois, and actually he had a cousin named Larry. You might have known him.
Okay, yeah.
But anyway, Steve was a turf salesman for Brayton Chemical, and he introduced me to an 18-hole superintendent at the Hyperion Field Club named Gene Jennings. And, you know, I was single at the time, and Gene kind of took me under his wing. He had a lawn care business on the side, so I'd work all day at Urbandale, and then I'd go help Gene in his lawn care, and I was like a sponge. You know, everything he talked about, I really wanted to emulate what he did. He was just such a cool guy and so successful. I thought, I want to be an 18-hole superintendent. And so we talked about that a lot with both of them. And Gene said, you know, Rick, you don't have a 4-year degree. He said, perhaps you should go work on a 9-hole or an 18-hole golf course. And Gene had worked in Chicago prior to his coming back to Iowa. So he set up an interview with the gentleman at Hinsdale Golf Club. And I got the job as the assistant, went to Hinsdale, and unfortunately the superintendent left midsummer, and I ran the golf course the rest of the year. They offered me the job that fall, and I declined it. Chicago was not where I wanted to live. I couldn't wait to get back to Iowa, and just by luck of fate or whatever, a job came open here at Des Moines Golf, and I became the North Course superintendent in the spring of '83. So, and then I worked for a gentleman named Bill Byers. Bill was here for 49 years, and that was who eventually I replaced.
What was that like replacing him? Some people, there's got to be some thoughts going through your mind about that. What am I going to do to raise to that level of what Bill had done here for so long?
Bill was a man of few words, but he was also a very good teacher, if that makes any sense. He demanded the best out of everybody and wanted you to do your best, and he helped you do your best. And, you know, when I was like 28 or 29, he said, what do you want to do with your life, with your career? And I said, Bill, I want your job. And he said, well, then leave Des Moines Golf. He says, you can't stay here and get this job, I don't think. And so I left. I had an opportunity to go to Elm Crest Country Club in Cedar Rapids. I went there for 17 years. And again, I tried to emulate what Bill did. You know, Bill killed his greens here at Des Moines Golf with a fumigate and seeded them to A4. When the time came for us to do it at Elm Crest, I did the same thing. Put the same grass, the same seed, the same type of greens, so that I knew when that day came open, I knew how to do it. You know, I knew how to manage A4 greens and things like that. And I kept in touch with Bill that whole time I was gone. You know, we talked, and then when the job actually came open, you know, he called and said, you got a resume ready? And I got to be honest, I loved Elm Crest. I did not want to leave, and my wife put her foot down. She says, you wanted this your whole life? I was really scared that I wasn't going to get the job. And I applied. There was 176 applicants for the job. And I was lucky enough to land it. So, but replacing a legend like Bill was tough. You know, you just got to be on top of your game the whole way and try to do better than what he did. And you know, we worked 3 months together, and it was the hardest 3 months I ever worked, because I was ready to make changes, and he was pissed off because I was making changes. You know, so And so fast forward 18 years, I've got to remember the same thing with whoever replaces me. I can't get mad. It's not my golf course. It's never been my golf course. It's always the members. I always try to remember that. So hopefully that transition goes well.
We're going to take a quick break on the GCSAA podcast with Rick Tegtmeier, CGCS MG, Director of Grounds at West Des Moines Golf and Country Club. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about his relationship, friendship that he's had with a major champion for quite a long time.
As a proud gold-level partner of the GCSAA Podcast, Envu is committed to working with golf course superintendents to accomplish great things on the course each day. With summer heat waves come a slew of new turf challenges. To help you and your cool season turf continue to thrive during this time, Envu offers expert advice and innovative solutions like Resilia Root Health Solution and StressGuard brand fungicides. They're formulated to make your turf stronger and healthier so it can better stand up to the abiotic and biotic stresses that arise during the summer months. According to recent studies, summer is actually the best time to start applying fungicides to warm season turf to prevent take-all root rot from taking hold in the shoulder seasons. The Envu Green Solutions team offers expert advice on how to protect your turf now by applying products like Mirage StressGuard fungicide in combination with the new Caslon fungicide. The combination of active ingredients fortifies your turf's core while boosting photosynthesis, so it's healthier, stronger, and better protected against root disease. Contact your Envu representative or go to us.envu.com/golf to learn more about agronomic solutions that can help you master the challenges that come with summer. Always read and follow label instructions. Not all products are registered in all states.
Before we took a little pause on that, on the first time that we were chatting, Rick, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the person you got to know who the whole world has really gotten to know since your time when you were first with him at Elk Crest Country Club in Cedar Rapids, a guy by the name of Zach Johnson. Fill us in a little bit on how all that came about and the candy bars and the things that you were involved with and the people and the young guys that were growing up around that course.
Okay, so when I was at Des Moines Golf, one of the things I asked Bill was, what's the key to being successful or long-term at a club? And he said, never tick off a kid, because someday that kid will be club president. He's going to remember it and you're not. And he said, always try to embrace junior golfers and try to grow the game. So when I went to Elm Crest, we had a great golf professional, Larry Gladson, who had been there prior to my coming there. And he had a long Hall of Fame career there also. But Larry had a great junior golf program, and I tried to get involved with the kids and, show up at junior golf days and go down and talk to them and everything, and talk to them about what we did on our side of the business. And we played fivesomes at Des Moines Golf, and at Elm Crest. And there was 5 young men that played almost every day. They were like 9, 10 years old, and I got to know them, and I would challenge them for long drives or give them golf balls or tees or whatever. And, we'd hit long drives for candy bars, and they always beat me. I'm not a very good golfer. But one of those young men was Zach. And, so when he went to college at Drake University, let me back up. He and his Cedar Rapids Regis team won the state golf tournament. And then he went to Drake. One of the other players, Brian Rupp, that was one of the boys that played. He went to the University of Iowa, which I think Zach would have loved to have gone to Iowa. He's a huge Iowa Hawkeye fan, but fate had it. He went to Drake. And everybody knows his story. He was never the best player on the team. He was always like 3rd or 4th, and we stayed in contact. He always came back for lessons with Larry, and Zach's parents are still members in Elm Crest. His dad's a retired chiropractor now. He was actually my chiropractor. But Zach turned pro, went on the Dakota tour. I played golf a couple of times with him, to different places. And, he finally won the Belsoft Classic. He goes in 2005. He gets a chance to go to Augusta. And so Larry and I went to support him. So I have a golf ball sitting here in my office from his first Masters that he signed for me. I don't have many autographs, but that's one I cherish. And then, of course, in 2007, he won the Masters. And then in 2015, he won the Open Championship at St. Andrews. So one of 6 golfers in the world to ever win at both those venues. So that was pretty cool.
And you've had some experience working over the pond, haven't you?
Yes, I was actually one of 2 Americans to be on the Open support team at St. Andrews. So all 4 days. So Open support team is done by BIGA. And basically what you do is you're assigned a threesome each morning, and you walk with that threesome and rank bunkers if they happen to hit a divot. So I walked St. Andrews for 4 days. It was probably one of the top 5 things in my career that I've done, so it was pretty cool. And actually the night before the Open Championship, they asked me if I would ask Zach to do a little video message to the crew. And he did a great little video message, and it was pretty special for me, being an American, and because he was the past champion at St. Andrews, and he put out a good message that was shared around the St. Andrews crew and the Open support team. So, but it was a lot of fun doing that. I would encourage anybody to do that and experience it. It's quite a deal.
When you think back on 40 years, there's probably been so many changes in the industry and what you guys do out on the course. What are the most significant ones that stand out to you, Rick?
Biggest probably is changing turf grass species. It used to be, I remember in the early 80s when everything changed to bent grass. Another big change, computers. I mean, never in my wildest dreams did I ever think I'd have a computer in my operation. I go to Elmcrest, there was a computer there, and I was so naive that I thought you could type a letter at the DOS prompt. That was before Windows. But I got involved, with Turf Bite with Dwayne Patton at Lawrence Country Club, and John Scott, who's deceased now. He was another one that started Turf Bite, and I learned computer skills, and that was really first social media, I guess, of the turf world, and now we have podcasts and TurfNet and Twitter and everything, so Gary Griggs' group on Facebook, and a lot of good ways to communicate with people all over the world.
Name the piece of equipment early on in your career that really wowed you and you thought, boy, this is going to be something huge, and maybe it turned out to be or didn't turn out to be. I don't know.
Probably the most significant thing that I've seen, Howard, is the Toro 648 air fire. That was a game changer with airification, grains airification. I probably never told you this, but I invented a machine that was called the Divot Master. We actually had a patent on it, and we took it to the shows and tried to sell it. We did a couple GCSAA shows, and we're part of that deal. And we made 35 of these units. We sold all 35 that we took out and sold. So we'd go to a golf course and we'd sell it, or demo it, and they'd buy it. There's still a couple in existence that are still being used today, but we couldn't get distribution. So that was a thing, a flop for me. But we made our money back that we invested in it. So that was probably a good one and a bad one. But there's been so many good changes to the mowers, to the you see fully autonomous mowers now coming out. You see just the quality is so much better than pulling a 7-gang mower, down the fairway and hopping off with the tractor and having to adjust it and everything like that. So a lot of changes over the years.
As overseeing your crews, your teams changed a lot. How have you altered, adjusted on the fly with that through the years?
Well, I've never been very good at dealing with people. I get frustrated easy. I'm loud, I'm big, I'm boisterous. That's sometimes taken as that I'm trying to intimidate him. I'm not. I'm really a softie. it's been really good for me to have superintendents that work for me that tell me, back off, you're doing it wrong, or they're not afraid to tell me that. And it's taken me, 40 some years to learn how to maybe do things a little bit better or a little bit smoother or more political. I've always been one to tell people what I think, and that's gotten me into trouble before, so. But I guess, I'm very proud of one fact that, I'm going out on my terms. I've worked over 50 years in the private club industry, and I've never been fired. So I'm pretty proud of that. So yeah, I got 7 months, Howard.
If one of your people on your staff, anybody who may come up to you from another course, whether it's in Iowa or somewhere else, if they came up to you and asked for advice on how to better themselves or advance, what would you tell them?
I guess all depends on what the situation was. I always have a lot of people come up and ask me questions about asking for help, and I'd love to help people, and I even see myself maybe in retirement, if a little 9-hole needs some help, or if 18-hole needs some help or advice, I want to be that guy that they can call and say, can come look at it, come help me and do that, so it's got to be very specific what they're looking for, what they're asking about, or whatever. I mean, I've seen a lot. I think I have a lot to offer people if they want help. They just got to ask.
Working with your son, Nate, for what, 16 years now, one of your superintendents, what's that been like? Having him there he's been with you for a long time, even before he worked for you.
Yeah. He actually started going to the golf course when he was 2. He would get up every weekend and go. So that was pretty cool. He, it's probably been more difficult on him than it is on me, because I expect a lot out of him. It's pretty cool to go through it. It's neat to see how he has developed and become a good young man. I like how he's approaching this juncture in his career. He wants to try to go for my job. I'm fully supportive of him. He and Mitch Meyer, our other superintendent, they really are my succession plan. And Tanner Walsh, one of our assistants, and Jeremy Griefey, they've been here a long time with me. They've all been through the Solheim Cup or came right after that, and so your succession plan for the club is to make sure they know how to do everything you know how to do. And Nate and Mitch know that. And Nate wants to move forward. That'll be up to our general manager and the search team, whether or not he deserves that chance, but hopefully that works out for him.
Looking out on the horizon to late October and beyond, what does your life after, let me say this word right, superintendenting mean to you as you kind of go forward with your life after being a superintendent for so many years and so much of your life and your career?
Howard, speaking with Larry Glasson, my former golf pro and friend in Cedar Rapids, he said, don't make any decisions for the first 4 months. He just retired. He said, Rick, you're going to have so many people come at you with different things. Don't make any decisions. Just wind down. And that's pretty good advice, I think. There's a lot of things that I want to do. I mean, I have other friends that are retired that have some cool things. Gene Jennings, the gentleman I mentioned from Hyperion, a couple of years ago, he purchased a 32-foot houseboat. And his goal has always been to float the Mississippi with it. So I think he and I are going to do such a thing where we put in, and it's good, Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer. We're going to hop on that boat. And we're going to float a couple days on the Mississippi and see what happens. So doing things like that, there's just a lot I want to do. My wife Sherry, she just retired after a successful career. So we're good, we're healthy, and hopefully there's a lot to do yet, lot to see. So.
Well, that's terrific. Well, we wish you the best, Rick Tegtmeier, CGCS MG from Des Moines Golf and Country Club. Thanks so much for taking the time with us today, and we really appreciate it.
Well, my pleasure, Howard. I appreciate everything you do. I appreciate the time you came to the Solheim and spent with us, and all you do for GCSAA and the superintendents and Scott too, even though Scott's going to be missed, but I wish you both the best.
Well, thanks. And I love being there for the Solheim Cup. Rick, thanks again. And that's it today for the GCSAA podcast. Thank you all for listening and take care.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the GCSAA podcast featuring Howard Richmond's conversation with Rick Tegtmeier, CGCS MG. We appreciate Rick taking some time to join us for this one and wish him nothing but the best as he rides off into retirement at the end of October. As always, there are more episodes of the podcast in the works, so stay tuned to your favorite podcast feed for all of that. But for now, it's time to say farewell and thank you to our podcast editor, Evan Shapiro, everyone at Envu for their ongoing support of the podcast, the GCSAA Board of Directors, and the outstanding staff at Association Headquarters in Lawrence, Kansas. And of course, my thanks to each of you for subscribing, downloading, and checking us out. Till we meet again, stay safe, stay healthy, and thank you for your support of the GCSAA podcast.